The Airbus A380 is a great example of how workforce planning has changed the way the airline and airport industry work. The new A380 has moved from the normal 300-seat passenger planes to a whopping 540 seats. This has created major logistical issues for the airlines, the airports and all of their staff. To deal with these changes requires a strategy and, from a people management point of view, a plan for dealing with the change. After all, this will require pilots with the right flying skills, the right flying time, cabin crew with the understanding of the new planes, as well as ground crews with the ability to turn it around quickly and within time. The plan around this is often called a workforce plan. It looks at where we are now, where we want to get to, and tries to identify what needs to be covered in between, and we call that the gap. The Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development talks about workforce planning as being part of a core people management strategy. It's about ensuring the right number of people with the right skills are in the right place at the right time. An example of when workforce planning goes wrong was seen in the Olympics in 2012. In that example, the security company involved failed to get the right number of people in the right place for the start of the Olympic Games, a major logistical and PR disaster. How do we workforce plan? The starting point is the organisational strategy. Where is the organisation going? What is the direction it's going? And what part do people play within that strategy? Workforce planning really then gets started at the next stage, where we collect the data that supports the workforce plan. This can include hard data, and that might be things such as the turnover of staff, sickness absence, the demand for new skills and new people over a period of time. It could also include softer areas, such as how we develop leaders for the future, attitude surveys, and succession planning. The other type of data we may use is more about intelligence. What do people on the ground know is going to be happening within that industry or within that workplace over a period of time? One route to gathering this intelligence data is by using what's known as a PESTLE. PESTLE is political, economic, social, technical, legal and environmental. An example of a political consideration has been around zero-hour contracts. Zero-hour contracts have become quite popular in many industries during the recession. However, politicians are now arguing that the contracts are unreasonable and unfair. This may lead to a situation that over the coming years, the ability of employers to offer these contracts is reduced. Economic considerations may affect a whole range of issues within the workforce. It may firstly affect the demand for products, meaning how many people we need to employ at different times. It may also impact on the supply of workforce and the cost of that workforce. Social issues include demographics. For example, with an ageing population, the supply of labour into our industries again may be compromised or reduced. Technological considerations, going back to the Airbus A380, can include a whole range of issues. For example, at airports, they've had to redesign the departure lounges and the arrival lounges. They've had to consider how to get additional baggage on the planes. They've had to retrain a whole range of other staff not directly involved with flying a plane. Legal issues can come from a whole range of angles, including the EU as well as Westminster. Often these will involve employment issues and impact on how we employ staff. And finally, environmental issues, again with the A380, issues about the emissions of the plane and also about the noise of the plane really drove forward a lot of the changes involved in the introductions of the new Airbus. At Solo, one of the things we do with employers is to carry out what we call a self-assessment. We design a bespoke self-assessment tool which the employers can then use to assess their own organisation on key metrics, whether that be hard data, soft data or the market intelligence. This enables them to check where they are as their starting point on their workforce plan. Having worked out where we're going and where we are, then workforce planning is about what's in between, and we call that the gap. Typically, when we're workforce planning, what we want to do is to work out the size of that gap and how we can go about closing it. So that involves thinking about, have we got the right number of people? If not, what is the right number of people? What skills do we need to be developing in those people? And do we need to create and develop a more flexible workforce to take advantage of the future changes? As an example, I recently worked with a healthcare client who was introducing electronic tablets into their healthcare setting. This involved care workers filling in the tablet online within patients' own homes. When we looked into it, it was clear that a number of staff didn't have the requisite IT skills needed to use the tablets. If we hadn't picked that up at an early stage, it would have meant that we'd have invested a great deal of money in new systems, new technology, but not having the staff to actually complete and use the actual new tools. The workforce plan, therefore, is a set of specific actions that we're going to take to close the gap. Typically, we use the SMART acronym. The job then is to implement and to monitor and measure the effectiveness of the planning to close that gap. In summary, workforce planning, therefore, is central to all organisational development programmes. It's about identifying where we want to go, measuring that in terms of data, and then putting in appropriate plans to close any gaps that we identify.